Monday and the weekend. And wow, yes. So thank you for being here and bringing me all of your questions. Today, we are talking about busting myths about Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. There's so much information out there. And I often talk about the different groups and how there's very few, if not pretty much one really great Facebook group that I like, maybe two, but you have to be careful about all the different information that you are exposed to and that you take in on a daily basis and apply to your life and to your choices surrounding your Hashimoto's or your hypothyroidism. I do the backslash because if you have Hashi, you are hypo. That's actually a question that I get sometimes. So just so you know, if you have Hashimoto's, you have hypothyroidism. 90% of all hypo is Hashimoto's, is the autoimmune form. So that's why we do the backslash. But I digress. Today we are talking about busting myths around this particular condition. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amie Hornaman. I'm a functional medicine practitioner specializing in treating thyroid conditions, hormone imbalances, and all around just fixing you. So why the hat? And I didn't really get ready for you guys today. Now, those of you listening on the podcast, you have nothing to worry about. You don't have to see the hot mess. So last night, 3 a.m. in the ER with my mom. So you're going to have to excuse the look, but I'm still here with you and we're going over lots of information. So get your notepad out. Don't mind the look. Just listen. Okay. So starting out, I want to start with something really important, and it actually came across my desk today with a patient's blood work. Iron. There's a myth out there, and it's not, you hear in the Facebook groups, you hear in different forums and on different blogs how important iron is from those in the know. But oftentimes in conventional medicine, it gets blown off, or I'll see an incomplete iron panel. It will be missing ferritin. And many conventional practitioners don't know the importance of an iron panel when it comes to the health of your thyroid. So low iron, specifically low ferritin, but we're going to say low iron in general, any kind of anemia that can actually mimic symptoms and exacerbate symptoms. You think about it, if your iron is low, you're going to be fatigued, you're going to have brain fog. If your ferritin is low, just on its own, not even the effect on the thyroid itself, but if ferritin is low, your hair is going to be crappy. It's going to be falling out. It's going to be dry like straw. Ferritin is vital and many what's going on with the live. You guys still there? Or are you still there? Because it just started to twirl a little bit. So something's up with the live. Shoot me a message, anyone watching this, that you can still hear and see me. Just throw a little, yes, I can see you in the chat box. Okay, moving on. Back to ferritin, back to iron. So ferritin itself is vital for the health of your hair. Now, ferritin is important for T4 to T3 conversion. So when we're in a situation of a low iron status, it can actually mimic these symptoms of hypothyroidism, like the fatigue and the hair and the brain fog, but it also can exacerbate the hypo symptoms that you're already experiencing because it is so vital for the health of your thyroid. And you guys, thank you for letting me know. We had a little blip in technology. That's how it goes here. So lack of iron can actually reduce the function of the thyroid gland because the thyroid uses those enzymes to produce thyroid hormones. So not only is iron important, low iron is going to mimic hypothyroid symptoms. It's also going to exacerbate your hypothyroid symptoms. So it's kind of like you're putting two in one, just piling on top of all these things that can affect your thyroid and affect your symptoms. And then thirdly, it's actually reducing the function of the thyroid gland itself because the thyroid needs those enzymes, needs the enzymes of iron and ferritin to produce T4 and T3, the two thyroid hormones. Now, this is in a person with a thyroid. Doesn't mean you have, because if you're without a thyroid gland, then guess what? You're going to need thyroid hormone replacement therapy. You're going to need T4 and T3, and you're going to need that T4 to properly convert to T3, which means that you need proper iron levels. Okay, so but it keeps getting paused. Yeah, I'm not. Something's probably just going to be one of those days, right? This is going to be one of those technology kind of days. I know what I'll do. I will go off of my Wi-Fi and reduce the amount of pull on my Wi-Fi. So, okay. Number 2. A lot of people will say, I don't have low stomach acid because I don't have reflux. I don't have acid reflux. You have to remember that many, many times with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, a person will just have naturally low hydrochloric acid. So hydrochloric acid is vitally important for your digestive system, for extracting nutrients from your food, for supporting your body in all of its functions. And low hydrochloric acid can actually cause constipation. So now you have constipation from low HCl. You have constipation from being hypothyroid and having Hashimoto's. And now on top of suffering from symptoms of hypothyroidism, there's a lower uptake of iron and other minerals. So now you have the iron problem on top of everything else. So now it's the triple whammy. You have iron issues, you have low hydrochloric acid, now you have constipation from hypothyroidism. You're going to Here's Hashimoto's. We tell people to supplement with hydrochloric acid or betaine HCl to improve digestion, to improve overall intake of minerals, breakdown of your food, and to improve your constipation that you're already experiencing with Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism. Okay, hopefully I keep getting messages that this is freezing, and I don't know whether it's on my end or whether it is from Facebook. So who knows, right? But I will get to all your questions. Keep posting your questions in the comment section, and I will definitely get to those at the end. And then if I continue to freeze, let me know. I can always jump off, come back on, and start over. Hopefully that won't be the case. But if we have to, we have to. Okay, so low hydrochloric acid also downregulates the uptake of iron and other minerals. And then this will downregulate thyroid and cause more constipation. So low iron uptake can be due to an unresolved gut issue like low digestive processes. So here you are, you have low iron. Some of you don't know why. Some of you cannot figure it out because you're taking an iron supplement. So you're like, why do I still have this low iron? Why do I still have low ferritin? Sometimes people do need an actual iron IV to really get their levels up because they're not properly absorbing the iron supplement that they're taking. And then many of you know that iron supplements are very constipating. My favorite is Ferrochill Iron by Designs for Health because it has very low, if not zero, side effects on the gut. So we like to use things that are easy on the gut because if we're using an iron supplement to support your iron levels and you're already Hashimoto hypothyroid, then that's the last thing we want to do is add to your constipation and add to your GI issues and have that iron tear up your stomach. No, we don't want to do that. So we want to use a nice, gentle iron that is readily absorbed by the body. Now, if you're taking an iron and you don't see your numbers going up, go back to the gut. Go back to the gut. Are you having digestive issues? Are you breaking down your food? Are you absorbing your supplements? Low hydrochloric acid. So you might need to add on betaine HCl in order to properly digest your food and break down that iron and actually get it absorbed into the body. Now, that's not to say that we can't also add in digestive enzymes. We can cycle a probiotic. Many of you take a probiotic daily. It's not good. You want to cycle them 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 1 week on, 1 week off. Just do not take a probiotic daily. And I do like the spore-based probiotics because they are coated and they go all the way to the small intestine. So they're treating the entire GI tract. But you want to cycle your probiotics, add in some digestive enzymes. Let's say you're adding in the betaine HCl and really start to heal and focus on your gut. So that's what I do when I work with patients that have gut issues. We have a variety of different treatment protocols depending on what is going on. And then someone that's really, really struggling, we might do a test called the GI map. It's phenomenal. It's by a company called Diagnostic Solutions. They are absolutely brilliant. And it tests for top to bottom, H. pylori, parasites, SIBO, dysbiosis, an imbalance in your good and bad gut flora. So it can actually tell us which probiotic strains you're low in and which you need to replace. And oftentimes we see that in people that are using probiotics on a day-to-day basis over and over, the same one. So they will become low in other beneficial gut bacteria, beneficial flora. See, this is where my mind is. This is the 3 a.m. thing. You got to give me a break today. You're just going to give me a break for my brain farts today. So the people that are using the same probiotic day in and day out, all you're doing is giving yourself that same strain over and over and over again. And listen, our bodies are smart. Eventually the gut's going to say, hey, what about these other billion strains that you're not giving us? Can we have some of that? That's why you have to cycle your probiotics. It's even good to go and use different ones, different good brands, different strains, or get the GI map so that we know which strains you are actually low in. And sometimes I will do that with a patient. It is an out-of-pocket expense. So I'm very frugal with my patients. I try to save money with my patients. So it is an out-of-pocket expense, but sometimes it's really worth it if you cannot get to the bottom of what is going on with your gut. I'm going back to ferritin since we're still kind of in the iron and digestive and gut realm. It all ties together. Everything ties together with the body. It all ties together. So ferritin, I mentioned it earlier, it really is the most important number in your iron panel, especially if you have hypothyroidism. So a lot of times people say, it doesn't matter how high it is. Ferritin can be as high. Well, we don't want it to be low. We do not want it to be low. We don't want it in that lower quadrant of normal. Oftentimes we talk about conventional medicine, lab value ranges. Remember, side of a barn is the standard lab value range. So you're considered normal if you fall in that range. Optimal, we want you in the middle to kind of veering in the upper part of the ferritin range. We don't want you low. So most lab value ranges will start at around the 16, 15, 16 for ferritin. If you're coming in at 16, 17, 20, 25, 30, 42, 50, that's too low. So we still have to supplement to get that up into the optimal range, but we also don't want it too high. So what we'll see if it's too high, when a person is suffering from inflammation, and that's very, very common when you have any kind of autoimmune condition, if you are battling hypothyroidism, remember the thyroid is the master gland. Of course, it's going to affect different inflammatory responses of the body. We talked a few weeks ago about insulin resistance. So if you are insulin resistant, you are naturally going to produce more inflammatory cytokines, and that is going to produce a systemic full body inflammatory effect. So that with inflammation, there's more iron being pushed into storage. So you don't really want that too high because then your ferritin's going to go up. You're going to end up with low iron because it's all in storage Low iron, that total iron, and then we look at percent SAT and TIBC, low iron is going to, even with high ferritin levels, is going to increase your reverse T3. So this is where it's all kind of convoluted, and you have to kind of write this down. That's why I said grab a notebook. You got to follow this. We do not want your ferritin too high. That's the iron storage. That will push total iron down, which will increase reverse T3. So we know reverse T3 is not something that we want high. Optimal is below a 12. I will accept anything from a 12 to a 15 as long as your free T3 is optimal and you're feeling good. Symptoms are down. So reverse T3 we want low. If reverse T3 is high, that's indicative of a conversion issue. So this is where the ferritin and the iron all play a role in that T4 to T3 conversion. Not only do proper iron levels help that T4 to T3 conversion, but too much ferritin and low iron, too much storage, low iron to be used by your body is going to push up reverse T3. And if that's tied into inflammation, then you have the inflammation, you have the low iron, and then let's say you have some insulin resistance, all of that is working against you. It is definitely working against you, and it will push up that reverse T3 through the roof, and that will cause hypothyroid symptoms. So foods, I see a couple questions coming across regarding iron supplementation. We'll definitely get to those. Like I mentioned, the ferritin iron, very, very good. You want to take iron with vitamin C. We're going to get to that. Foods, you can do meat, eggs, green leafy vegetables. All of those are chock full of iron. But remember, it comes down to if you have a gut issue, you need to make sure you are properly digesting those foods. So sometimes it's just easier to use supplementation, especially if your level is very, very low. Iron has to be taken with vitamin C in the form of ascorbic acid and acerola. So you don't want just ascorbic, say that 5 times fast, ascorbic acid. Many cheap vitamin C supplements are just that. They do not contain the acerola. You want that combination or even just acerola, but most of the time they come in a combo. You want to take vitamin C with your iron for proper breakdown and utilization and absorption. You also do really want to take it with food. I do recommend taking your iron with food. Even the most gentle of supplements, like the ferritin iron, can still cause some GI distress. I myself have taken it without food. I can usually take anything without food and be fine. And a couple of occasions, it really hurt my stomach. So I highly recommend taking it with the vitamin C and with food. Now, of course, with any kind of iron supplement, well, not so much food, but iron supplement, you have to take 4 hours away from your thyroid medication. And I know for some of you that gets a little bit tricky. I get a lot of questions of this as well. When should I take it? Because I'm taking my T4 here, my T3 here, my Armor here. It does take some finagling to figure out exactly the time of day to take your iron, but it's totally doable. 4 hours away, especially containing T4. It's not as sensitive with T3, but I still wouldn't risk it. If you're taking T3, we're trying to get your T3 levels into an optimal range and get you feeling better. I wouldn't mess around with taking it within that 4 hours. You can figure out a time to take your iron away from your thyroid supplements. Okay, another big myth. So we're finally moving on from iron. I wanted to touch on that because it's so important and there's so many different little pieces that we have to touch on and talk about and that you need to know because it's so important to the health of your thyroid and to all of your symptoms. So if you're sitting there saying, well, why am I still tired? My thyroid labs look good. Well, why my hair is still falling out? Everything looks good on the thyroid end. It could be go back to the iron and then go back to your gut. And are you breaking down the iron? Are you absorbing it? Very important to touch on. So we spent a little bit of time there. Now moving on, another myth is that you can't eat cruciferous vegetables, that you should stay away from these. And I want to touch on this because I know a lot of you are sitting there going, oh, I know that already. Many of you don't. Many of you are still staying away from it. In fact, it was a seminar with colleagues of mine. And one of them talking on nutrition, I was presenting a thyroid case, and she said, well, I think it's important that you tell your patient to stay away from cruciferous vegetables. And that is true to a point. You want to stay away from eating large amounts of raw cruciferous vegetables because they contain goitrogens and they can affect the absorption of your thyroid medication. So things like cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and cabbage, you just don't want to be eating them like a rabbit. Don't eat them raw. Cook the hell out of them, preferably in some olive oil because that actually brings out the nutrients and the minerals in it. Cook them down. Cook them down. And then you can eat as many as you want. Just don't be dipping them in some ranch and eating them raw every day because that's what you learned in 1980 in terms of dieting. Okay, myth number, I don't know what we're on, 5. I need a food sensitivity panel. Let me tell you something about food sensitivity panels. And again, you may have heard me mention this, but it's worth mentioning again. One of my mentors, I actually worked with him, Dr. Dan Pompa, years and years and years ago, 20-some years ago. And in his office, we would always be talking nutrition and functional medicine. We butt heads sometimes, but we both went the functional medicine route. And I have learned so much from him. He was actually in the position, and Dan, I apologize if I get this a little bit wrong, but he was in the position that he could test himself and some patients on a food sensitivity panel. He did it every day for multiple days in a row. He might have even went 2 weeks with it. And every single panel was different. So you might get a food sensitivity panel done and say, oh my gosh, I have to eliminate eggs because it says I'm sensitive to eggs. And I have to eliminate buckwheat and artichokes and berries. Well, it could just be that you happened to expose yourself to eggs and berries and artichokes and some buckwheat multiple times. Maybe that's the staple of your diet, and now it's going to come up high on a food sensitivity panel. They're very erratic, they're expensive, and it's money that you really just don't need. And I know there's functional medicine practitioners out there that are listening now going, no, we use food sensitivity panels all the time and they work. How about just an elimination diet? I know I'll save you $300 and tell you to eliminate the big ones. Like a lot of people are sensitive to eggs. You just have to take them out for a little bit. And then we can try adding them back in. Go ahead and take out the gluten because you need to anyways if you have Hashimoto's. Even if you don't have Hashimoto's, it's going to mess up your gut. So why don't you just remove that anyways? Get rid of the oats and the barley and the corn. Get rid of the bad oils like canola oil and corn oil and soy. Get rid of soy completely. Let's see, what else? We got some dairy. So get rid of the bad dairy. Have some organic sour cream, raw cheese, grass-fed cheese, and just get rid of the milk. And there you go. There's your elimination diet. And I just saved you $300-$400 on your food sensitivity panel because I can tell you what you're sensitive to because most people are. I once had a patient that came into me with a stack. I mean, a book of blood work. And in there, he just had a food sensitivity panel done, not allergy. This is different from allergy. This is different from you who have a peanut allergy, a shellfish allergy. This is sensitivity, meaning when you eat it, and you can pretty much figure this out on your own without dropping $300. When you eat it, you react. When I eat garlic and onions, I don't need a $300 panel to tell me I am going to be in some GI pain. You can, if you're in tune with yourself, you can kind of figure this out. But I digress again. Patient came in with this book and he said, I can't eat anything. I am sensitive to every single food in here. I don't know what to eat. I'm down to like 2 or 3 choices now. Luckily, he was going to a local allergist, of all people, a local allergist who ran another food sensitivity panel. How many things do you think came back with him being sensitive? Just take a guess. It's going to be a goose egg. Big old zero. Was not sensitive to anything. Now, I'm sure a lot of those went down because he did a very strict elimination, because before he came to see me, he thought basically that he couldn't eat anything. But that's the discrepancy with food sensitivity panels. I urge you to just eliminate that which affects you and eliminate the big guns, the soy, the gluten, the wheat, the barley, the oats, the rye. Take out the eggs if you think that it affects you. Don't drink milk. And then you pretty much figure it out and you'll be okay. Maybe take out the peanut butter and swap it out for some almond butter or cashew butter. Food sensitivity, way different from an allergy. I get it if you guys are allergic. That's a whole different deal, a whole different topic. But food sensitivity panels, you do not necessarily need. Okay. Another myth. I think we're on 6, 7. See, this is where my brain is. I can't keep track. My TSH is suppressed, so I must be hyper. Because, the doctor said so too. So I have to drop my meds. Total myth, total myth. Again, it's beautiful when these things actually happen today. Literally, the iron and now the low TSH, came across my plate in dealing with patients today. Your TSH is going to become suppressed when you're on any kind of T3 medication. It even becomes suppressed on T4 medication. I know a couple of my listeners, Jan, if you're listening, I know that you chimed in one time and you said when you were on T4 only, your TSH became suppressed. It's a natural occurrence. If you think about the mechanism, if you think about the biological process of what TSH is and how it works, of course, it's going to go down as you optimize your thyroid. So as your T3, and even as your T4 goes up and then converts to T3, free T3, to be used by your cells, plural, every cell in your body, then your TSH is naturally going to go down because the body, the pituitary, is going to have that feedback loop and it's going to sense that it's good, all is well in the body. There's enough thyroid hormone going on that we don't need to scream at the thyroid gland and kick it a couple times to make it produce more. It's cool. So it quiets down. So thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, goes down. And sometimes it does become suppressed. That does not mean that you are hyper. In order to properly diagnose hyperthyroidism, we have to look at your free T3, your free T4. Those would be through the roof if you're truly in a hyperthyroid state. You would be anxious. You would have heart palpitations. You would have insomnia. You would feel like you drank 1 million cups of coffee. So we have to pair you up as the person with your symptoms to your labs, to that low TSH, but also to the free T3 and the free T4. We have to look at it all together. You cannot just look at a TSH level and call someone hyper. It doesn't work. It does not work that way whatsoever. Last one before I get to your questions. This is a big one. Oh, adrenal blowout is just so common. My adrenals are shot. I have adrenal fatigue. Now, this is going to cause some controversy as well. Go ahead and chime in if you disagree. If you're a functional medicine doc and you're on here and you're saying, nope, I see this all the time in my practice, then let me know, because I don't. In general, so let me start here. Cortisol, very, very important for the health of your thyroid. Very, very important if you're taking thyroid medication, that we time that well, that we have your cortisol in the perfect little pattern, that it's not too high, that it's not too low. Because too high of cortisol and too low of cortisol can affect your thyroid function and can affect your medication. So it can affect T4 to T3 conversion as well. It's also going to start affecting your blood sugar. It's going to have an inflammatory response in your body because high cortisol equals high blood glucose, equals insulin resistance, equals those inflammatory cytokines that we talked about. Horrible cascade. However, that being said, when you look at a 4-point salivary cortisol panel, not just 1 point. I don't mean going to the lab in the morning and you come back with high cortisol via your blood. I mean really looking at a 4-point salivary cortisol panel. That means taking it first thing upon waking. The next one's around noon. The next one's around 5. And the next one is before dinner. That way we have that pattern because it's supposed to start high and gradually go down throughout the day. You want to look at the pattern because one point isn't going to tell us your actual pattern. It is very, 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 very incredibly, very rare that we will see true adrenal blowout. Now, your adrenals might be taxed. They might get exhausted from going through stressors in your life, but it is incredibly rare that they're actually blown out. The only time that I have seen this occur is in a patient of mine who went through a divorce and lost her 20-year-old son all in the same year. And there may have been some other circumstances in there as well. There we saw a true flat line, base at the very bottom, low cortisol, totally flatlined. That is true adrenal blowout. Your adrenals are shot. They can't even produce proper amounts of cortisol anymore. Now, before that happens, we normally see, if we could have caught her, let's say a year ago, we may have seen her flatline at the top, just pumping out cortisol left and right, pumping it out. But it is incredibly rare that I will see those flat lines in people. Oftentimes, we'll just see a couple points that are off or a little bit out of balance. That's easy to treat. We can treat with ashwagandha. If you're a male, we can treat with phosphatidylserine. If you're a female, we can give you T3 during the times of low cortisol to try to bump that up. There's so many different approaches that we can do to address cortisol levels. And then, of course, your sleep and your stress and deep sleep and melatonin and all those other things that go into it. We can treat cortisol levels and those points in a cortisol panel, but I don't want you walking around thinking that you have complete adrenal blowout. I got a 4-point done. It wasn't too long ago, within the last year. Now you have to look at, I've shared with you. Okay. So last night, my mom, 3 a.m. in the hospital. Most of you know she has Alzheimer's. My dad in the last 5 years went through 2 rounds of chemo. I've moved multiple times. I started a doctor program, running a business, moved my business from one city to the other. I mean, it just stress. And my cortisol panel was fine. So, and that's one story out of many. I won't share too many of my patient stories, but the patients that get the salivary cortisol panels done, usually they're within that range. And there's just a couple points that we have to treat. Very, very rare that I see true adrenal blowout, true adrenal exhaustion. And if you're there, you've probably been through hell and back. Some of you have been, and you still have a normal cortisol panel. Some of you have been, and you're flatlined, and you're in true adrenal exhaustion. Cortisol is incredibly important for the thyroid, but I think the term adrenal blowout, adrenal exhaustion is just used a little bit too much. So we had to clarify based on the multitude of salivary cortisol panels that I have seen over the years. And then when you dig into the background of that person, because most of my patients are pretty open with all the stressors that they've been through, because that does play a role in your overall health. Once we start digging into that, we see, oh, this is what caused it. And that makes sense. But normal day-to-day life, normal day-to-day stressors usually do not take that kind of a toll on your adrenal glands. So it's a very easy fix. We can totally fix that if you have a couple points that are off. So those are the big myths. Oh, there's so many more. There's so many more that I see. Oh, I will touch on one more before I get to your questions. Because again, this came in this week from a patient. She asked because she was reading online. So this is why I did this particular topic. Reading online, Dr. Google, some kind of blog, that the keto diet is not good for Hashimoto's. Okay, let's break this down. First of all, if you have Hashimoto's, again, we can tie this all back to everything that we just talked about. 9 times out of 10, there's insulin resistance. That insulin resistance is going to produce inflammatory cytokines. The inflammatory cytokines is going to exacerbate your Hashimoto's. It's also going to drop your iron levels that we talked about and increase your reverse T3. All of that is just inflammation. High insulin, high inflammation will also cause migraines. It'll cause weight gain. So it will exacerbate all of your Hashimoto hypothyroid symptoms as well. So let's think, if we just do this in a smart way, and I'm not talking dirty keto where you're eating pork rinds and cheese all day. Let's lower your processed food intake. Let's remove sugar and gluten. What's wrong with that so far? Pretty much nothing. Okay, now let's add in some good fats like avocado and olive oil and coconut oil. Do we see a problem yet? Any kind of inflammatory response in the body? No. Okay, so moving on, let's add in some really nice protein to feed your muscles, to keep your blood sugar stable, to give you energy, to help that hair that's falling out and the nails that are breaking and your skin that's dry. Grass-fed meat, wild-caught salmon, hormone-free chicken and turkey. Any problems so far? No. So I would love to hear the argument. I didn't really dive into which Dr. Google site that she landed on that told her that the ketogenic diet is bad for Hashimoto's. But if we break it down and look at it piece by piece, step by step, what the whole theory is on keto, and if you're doing it clean and not dirty, it's pretty darn good for Hashimoto's actually. Now, again, nutrition all comes down to the individual. Not everyone has to go super duper low carb unless your insulin is through the roof and your glucose is through the roof. Sometimes we can do a moderate carb. So we're still pulling out the processed foods. We're still dropping your gluten. We're still balancing out your blood sugar and your insulin. It's all very personalized. But the bottom line is the myth that we are busting is that the ketogenic diet is bad for Hashimoto's. Absolutely, it's not. What would be better? So that's the argument I would pose. What's better? Do you think eating a plant-based diet is better? Well, I can counter that with all of this plant-based protein that we're eating is actually full of inflammatory ingredients, the lectins, very inflammatory. And when you're eating nothing but plant-based, you're consuming a high amount of lectins. That again starts that inflammatory process. A vegan vegetarian diet is high in carbohydrates. It is low in protein. So now your hair and your skin and your nails are starving for amino acids. Your muscles are starving for amino acids and they're not getting it. So I can give you as many arguments against vegan vegetarianism. Nothing wrong if you are, if you're doing it right. But if you are, I really highly suggest looking at your protein sources and adding in a good collagen or some type of bone broth based protein. Let's just say it. You're going to have to branch out a little bit and realize that the protein powder that's made from bone collagen, I'm not even going there. I'm not even stepping on that landmine. Anyways, busting the myth that the ketogenic diet is bad for Hashimoto's. If you have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes along with your Hashi, you should probably go low carb. Okay, I'm done with the myths today. I'm done. I'm ready for your questions. Donna, you're here. Beach season is over. Well, I'm sorry that beach season is over, but I'm happy to see you here. Okay, so hopefully after I went off of my Wi-Fi, you guys were able to hear me a little bit better and it stopped freezing. Here's to hoping. Okay, getting to your questions. Miss Carly, how can we best treat the low iron? So I think I covered that, but I'll refresh it here for you. I'll go over it again. So I listed the foods, the top food like meat and eggs, green leafy vegetables, fantastic to add into your diet. But you may have to add in an iron supplement, one that is preferably gentle on your stomach. You have to pair it up with vitamin C. That vitamin C has to contain acerola in it, not just ascorbic acid. And you want to eat it with food. Now, sometimes you have to dose multiple times a day. You might have to take your iron twice a day if your iron is really, really low and it's not quite going up as we are supplementing. Now, if it's not quite going up as we're supplementing, let's look at your gut function. How's your hydrochloric acid? You do not have to have acid reflux to have low stomach acid. And in fact, that can confuse some people. Some people will say, well, wait a minute, I have acid reflux. So how am I low in stomach acid? That is connected many times. And I'm not going to get into the biology right now. Just know that many times you can have acid reflux and that the actual cause is low stomach acid. So when we supplement with betaine HCl, we improve your stomach environment, balance out the pH, and then all of a sudden your acid reflux goes away. But this is also going to improve digestion of all foods and absorption and breakdown of that iron supplement that you're taking with vitamin C. Okay, Carly, I hope that helps. You're asking to why not a probiotic daily? So I did go into that. It actually, so you said, can I not take a probiotic and digestive enzyme the same day? No, you can take them both the same day. That's not a problem. But with probiotics, you want to cycle them because remember we talked about the gut flora. So let's say we were to do a GI map on you, we can actually see which strains of good bacteria are low and which strains are high. And usually the ones that are high are part of your probiotic that you're taking on a daily basis without stopping, without cycling, without switching, without adding in a different strain. So it's always good to cycle through. And like I said, I really like the spore-based probiotics. They're very, very good. So Alicia, you're saying, does the betaine HCl work with berberine? Can they be taken together? Yes, absolutely they can be, because with berberine, we want to take it either right before a meal or with a meal. Betaine HCl has to be taken with a meal. There are many supplements that you can take together, but that's a really good question. Alka, you're saying that your ferritin is 61. So I would have to say, Alka, what is the range of your ferritin on the lab? Like I said, most of them go from 16 to, I even forget the upper range right now, 230, something like that. So 61 would still be a little bit on the low end. If you do have hypo, I would want that up slightly. I would work at getting that up a little bit more, just depending on the range that they give you. Kathy, so probiotics 1 week and one week on, 1 week off. Yes. So Kathy, 1 week on, 1 week off, and then even preferably cycling through, adding in just different pick from the good brands. And even in the good brands, sometimes they have different probiotics. So they might have a spore-based one. They might have one that is specifically for after antibiotic use. So like Designs for Health has that ProBiomed. So we use that. They have a ProBiomed 50, a ProBiomed 100. And depending on the length of time someone has to be on an antibiotic or post-surgery, we'll add that in because that's a medical grade probiotic to counteract the effects of taking an antibiotic. So you can cycle through those and you can add in the spore-based ones. So just change it up. Add some kombucha, add some kimchi, add some fermented sauerkraut. Get your probiotics and your prebiotics from your foods as well. So just mix it up. Your gut likes variety. It does not want that same probiotic pounded on it every single day that we've been told in the media, trying to sell things like Align yogurt, or maybe that's a supplement. What's that? Oh, Activia yogurt. There's not even live strains in there. You're just taking in sugar. Okay. Carly, you're saying mine is 24. I'm thinking that you're saying your ferritin is 24, in which case I would suggest looking into supplementing because we want to get that up a little bit. Talk to your doctor first. Disclaimer. But I would suggest supplementing with that because that's a little bit too low. And Carly, I'm going to assume that you are suffering from low energy. How's your hair? Are you on a thyroid medication right now? Is your thyroid optimal? Where's your reverse T3? Okay, it's difficult to figure all this out. My numbers are all over the place. Goes up and down, not sure why. So Alka, I'm not sure what number you're talking about, if you're just talking about ferritin or if you're also talking about all of your thyroid numbers too. So we would need to see what your numbers are and then the ranges. And then always, feel free to reach out to me. We can always talk about working together too to get you balanced out and figure out why these numbers, whichever you're talking about, are going up and down. Okay. Elaine. Miss Elaine, hi. Thanks for being up with me. I know it's early where you are. So top shelf probiotic powder plus plant-based protein powders are making all the difference for me. I'm using every day, yet taking a break on the weekends, mainly because it's a bit pricey using MedLab brand and getting good result. You're in Australia though. Able to put my own shoes on and wash and brush my own hair now. Woo! Hey, Elaine, we take small wins all the time. And listen, I'm not saying when I was talking about the keto and vegan and plant-based, throwing in a plant-based protein powder here and there, that's fine. I mean, in fact, I would suggest maybe even mixing it up and adding in like a collagen to get some protein too. You want to get type 1, type 2, type 3 collagen. Most of the time they come all in one. So adding in a collagen, adding in a bone broth-based protein powder or bone collagen protein powder, that will just mix it up. So you're not just taking plant-based protein powders every single day. Okay. Miss Donna, good to see you. Amanda, hi. Christy, much better. Okay, so the stream is much better. Maybe it was just too many things pulling on the Wi-Fi. I don't know. Alka, I downloaded the complete thyroid fix, so ignore my questions. So glad I found you today. I need help. So in that, so what Alka's talking about, you probably grabbed it off my website or one of the posts. You can go to my website at amiehornaman.com and click on free guides. So there's the lab and symptom checklist, the complete thyroid fix lab and symptom checklist. And in there, it has all the labs that you need. It also has the lab values ranges. Most of them, it will apply to most of you, and it will have the optimal ranges as well. So that's really where you want to target, because remember, conventional lab value range, side of a barn, optimal functional lab value range where we want you is like a target on the barn. So I give you those optimal ranges. Feel free to download that. That way you have it, save it, you have it. Every time you get labs, you pull that out and you refer to it. I need to add to it too. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Miss Alka. Teresa, I'm considering switching to a carnivore diet. Is this a safe diet for someone that's had a thyroidectomy? So Teresa, I would say kudos and yes. Listen, the carnivore diet, I haven't even touched the surface on its benefits. There are a ton. Dr. Paul Saladino is brilliant. He speaks on it. I highly recommend you look him up if you want more information on how to properly do the carnivore diet, as well as some pretty hardcore science-based evidence as to the efficacy and benefits of the carnivore diet. All of that being said, I don't know if I could do it. If I had to do it, I would do it. Like if I was really suffering, I was like, oh, nose to tail. Okay, here we go. Give me some liver. And yeah, I'll give up my dark chocolate. I know you don't technically have to give up dark chocolate. So the carnivore diet will allow you little bites of dark chocolate. And it's not just all meat. They do encourage a wide range. Nose to tail, adding in seafood, adding in wild-caught salmon, really kind of branching out with what you do. But I have even yet to, like I said, skim the surface of the benefits of that. So, you know, like keto's here, you think keto's hard, carnivore is a whole nother level. And Teresa, I would love to hear how you do on it. So yes, you will notice an improvement, especially with a thyroidectomy. Remember that your thyroid is no longer there. So you're no longer producing T4 and T3 hormones, and you need proper medication to supplement with that. So when they give you that medication, you're probably either on T4 only, or you're on a blend of T4 and T3. That T4 has to convert to T3. You take down inflammation, you take down insulin by doing carnivore, girl, you're going to be riding high. That T4 to T3 conversion is going to be beautiful. Make sure you look at your iron, but your iron's probably going to be perfect on the carnivore diet because of the meat and the nose to tail. So you're going to be adding in, bone marrow and the liver. And I don't know if you're going for like the heart or the brains or anything like that, but man, there's some good stuff in there. Kudos, thumbs up. Let me know how you do. I like the anecdotal evidence when people actually tell me how they do. Alka, you're jumping back. 16 to 232. All right, I knew it was around there for the ferritin range. So for you being 61, I would get that up a little bit. I mean, especially if you're still suffering from hypo symptoms, I really would. I would get that up a little bit. Elaine, you're saying berberine is the bomb. Yeah, no, it is. It really is. It's one of my favorite supplements. So if you haven't listened to, well, it's not a podcast on berberine, but it's a video on berberine. You can go to my YouTube channel and I talk all about berberine. I also mention it when we talk about insulin resistance. So there is a podcast on that. We'll put it in the show notes as to which one you can go back to and listen all about insulin resistance. And we go in depth about the benefits of berberine. So Carly, you're saying, is Phillips Colon Health a good probiotic? Where'd you go? My gastro recommended it. It's the only one I take. I don't know. I don't know about that supplement actually whatsoever. I don't know about the company and I don't know about that particular one. So in general, Carly, so when we're talking about, actually, if you look at the post that I did earlier today, it lists all of now I'm not sure if Phillips will be in there or not. I would have to look at the picture more, but I know some of the biggies that are in there, all of the big corporations that have bought the smaller supplement companies. And by smaller, I even mean like Pure Encapsulations and Metagenics. I mean, they're still big boys, but they're not as big as Nestle and Bayer and Amway. So all of these big corporations have bought a lot of the smaller, quote unquote, air quotes, supplement companies. And now the quality has gone down. And I read an article where the writer, who was actually a doctor, said Nestle should stick to making candy or to making chocolate, because then when it comes to, and this is what I've been saying all along, it's nice to hear somebody else say it as well, it's going to come down to the bottom dollar. It's going to come down to the bottom line. Do you think that Nestle is going to care about cutting the quality of your probiotic or your fish oil or your vitamin D if it means that they save $1 million a year? No, because there's enough people buying it and there's enough other Nestle products that they're pretty much covered. But when you go to a small family-owned company, they're going to care about the reputation. They're going to care what goes into your body. They're going to care whether or not you get a response from it. And they're going to make sure that their quality is top notch. That's why you have to get away from the companies that have been bought out by the major corporations and really focus on those smaller family-owned companies that are still in existence. Hopefully that answers your question a little bit, but I'm sorry, I don't know about Phillips Colon Health. So you have to do some research. In general, Carly, I keep going back to Designs for Health because I love them. I love Designs for Health. I love Organifi. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Those are the two that come across my head. Standard Process has some good stuff. They have some not so good stuff. So I kind of go back and forth with them. I have a colleague that really, really loves them. So I think that they're actually working on improving the quality of their products, and they do a lot of education as well, just like Designs for Health. They have seminars, they have webinars, they have podcasts, they put out science papers on the different products and in relation to different disease states. So I think if you stay in those realms, Carly, you'll be much, much better. And again, going back to, so Carly, if you go to my website at amiehornaman.com, you can click on the supplement tab, and that will actually take you to the Designs for Health site. You can also download the lab symptom checklist or the 3 things that you can do right now to lose fat. All of those will have links to Designs for Health products as well. And then, you know what, Carly, if you put your email in the comment section, I will send you the Hashimoto's hypothyroid supplement guide. So if you're a member of the Attuned Thyroid, it's in the files. And if you're not a member of the Attuned Thyroid group on Facebook, give me your email and I will shoot that over to you. And that will help too. Teresa, thanks for answering my question. I have been watching boatloads of carnivore diet videos, but was concerned with having a thyroidectomy. So with all the carnivore diet videos, have you watched Dr. Paul Saladino? Because he's the top dude on the carnivore. So watch him for sure. Elaine, thank you for your time, Dr. Shiny Amie. I love you, Elaine. You're so funny. I love you being on here. Teresa, thanks again for your valuable information. You helped me a lot with getting my nurse practitioner to give me an extra dose of NP thyroid, which has helped me a little, 60 in the morning, 15 in the afternoon. So that's great, Teresa. Thank you for that feedback. And I would say definitely make sure that you are getting all your labs tested. Make sure you test your reverse C3. Make sure you talk to your NP about your symptoms as well. So if you're still suffering, you might have to go up. So take your vitals, check your labs, check your symptoms, pair all that up together. Carly, got it. Okay, I will send that out to you. Make myself a little note. Alka, I'm a vegetarian. Too late for me to change now. LOL. I have started supplementing with beef liver caps. Good job, girl. And we'll add bone broth protein. Good. I'm totally fine with that. I do eat wild caught fish. See, there you go. My A1C is 12.2. My blood sugar was 346 fasting. I'm hypothyroid. I've had an obscene amount of stress. I'll read the info I've downloaded and we'll reach out to you. You're absolutely amazing for doing these live chats. My email is okay. Thank you. And Alka, I mean, seriously, an A1C that high and a blood sugar that high, you need to watch the insulin resistant podcast and you need to watch the berberine video on YouTube. So if you go to the Thyroid Fix podcast on any podcast platform, you will just subscribe to it, scroll through, you'll see the insulin resistant one. Listen to that. Because I'm assuming, I am not diagnosing, I am assuming that you've already been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So I'm also assuming that you are on metformin. Big assumption. I'm just going to throw it out there. Metformin and berberine work really, really well together. This is the perfect example of how vegetarianism can shoot your glucose, your blood sugar, and your A1C through the roof. That's not doing you a service. Good job on adding the bone broth protein. Good job on adding the wild caught fish. You might have to do some changes in your carbohydrate intake as well. You might have to add in some berberine. We definitely have to look at your thyroid lab. Oh, Donna just said that. Oh, Donna said, what thyroid meds and dose are you on? That's important too. What are your thyroid numbers? By the way, metformin can drop your TSH. So you can actually be told that you're normal and okay when you're on metformin. Okay, you're saying you're on NP thyroid 90 and 15. So you're splitting that up. Yeah, we really need your thyroid labs to really get a full picture there. So, Alka. Okay, so Alka, I'm going to recommend two things. Number one, definitely jump in the Attuned Thyroid group. So Donna, who's jumping in and answering you right now and throwing out some info, she is one of the admins of the Attuned Thyroid. I talk about this all the time. They are rock stars on there. That is one of the groups that I do recommend because it's science-based information. And again, I always use this analogy and it's different every single time, but it goes something like this. Some of the other groups, you'll get advice where, my brother's girlfriend's aunt's daughter heard on Dr. Oz to take this supplement that was really, really good for thyroid. And I think you should do it. So the Attuned Thyroid will not allow half-assed, biased information, trying to sell multi-level marketing stuff, diet pills, any of that. The admins are great. They're knowledgeable. And if you post this question and then definitely post and all the information is in the Attuned Thyroid, but they want your labs with the ranges and your med and your dose. So when you put all that in there, you will get a lot of great information from the admins based on that. Like Dawn is saying, 115 is not a lot. Everybody, and this is a question I got today too, like, what's the optimal dose of leothyronine, Cytomel, NP? It's on you. It's based on you. Somebody's optimal for T3 could be 10, somebody else's could be 150. Someone's optimal for NP thyroid could be 115, or it could be 220. I mean, you just don't know. And sometimes it's a matter of multi-dosing. So, Alka, there's a lot going on here. And feel free to reach out to me. Definitely join the Attuned Thyroid. We can get you on track. I mean, okay, you're already on. Oh, no, Elaine's saying, yeah, lots of fab informed info on the Attuned Thyroid. Definitely. So, and Alka, you were fired by your doctor who asked me to find another doc. Holy hell. Okay. All right. Miss Alka. Okay. You're going to go to my website and schedule a call so we can get to the bottom of this. Because I don't like those blood sugar numbers. I don't like that A1C. That's just going to get in the way. So you're taking NP, which is T4, T3, right? So you're taking like 115. So I'm not going to do a whole ton of math right now. But we're going to say like, okay, 30, you're getting like 30 micrograms of T3 and the rest is T4. And without insulin, that T4 is going to have a hell of a time converting over to T3 with your insulin that high. So, yeah, Donna said there's no optimal standard for anyone. I mean, we can't just say, you want to reach a dose of XYZ. It's different for absolutely everyone. I've seen everything from 5 micrograms, rare, but 5 micrograms of T3 work. You're on 30. That's great. But then again, we have to look at what's your reverse T3. Are you converting? Is that high insulin getting in the way of conversion? So there's just a lot going on there for you. Okay. And finally, I will read Donna's comment and then we will all go. I will let you guys go and eat. Yeah, Donna said you were probably better off without that doctor anyways. So yeah, that's so true. So if your doctor fires you and tells you to find another doctor, you probably do want to go find another doctor. And that goes for if you ask your doctor for labs and he or she says, no, it's time to find a new doctor anyways, because it's no skin off their back or money out of their pocket to order labs for you to find out what the full picture of your health is. So yeah, it's time to move on anyways, Alka. So I'll be talking to you soon. Definitely joined Attuned. And I just want to thank you all for staying with me through technological difficulties in the beginning. Definitely subscribe to my podcast, the Thyroid Fix podcast, on all of your podcast platforms: Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, all that good stuff. And if you need any of the guides that we talked about, go to my website at amiehornaman.com and download the free guides. And I will be talking to you all next week. Same time, 4 o'clock. We'll see you then.